Hi everyone, my name is Hainz'el and I'm the founder of Gig Genius. First of all, I would like to welcome you in my platform. I know there could be a lot of things that you've noticed that we need to improve on, and don't worry, we are still working on it. But for now, I want you to focus on your freelancing journey. And I just want you to know that I created this first few courses for free to better equip you or help you before you dive into the vast ocean and start your freelancing journey. So, the first question that I have for you is, what is freelancing? Do you already have an idea what a freelancing journey is? Or let me ask you, are you ready for the hustle of being your own boss? So, this is the introduction. So, as a freelancer, I want you to take note of this. You are self employed. That means you are not bound to a single employer unless there's an employer that states that they don't want you to work for another client, which basically locks you into a contract, which I wouldn't recommend, but it happens. And the other one would be the type of client that's okay and that's just very fine to having you working with different clients. And basically, just imagine this. Since you are considered self employed, that means you are considered as someone running a business. And if I am a business owner and I would just only have one client, that means it's gonna be hard for me to survive because I'm just only working for one client. But it's okay if you're satisfied with one client. What I'm just saying is, in freelancing, you are not bound to a single employer. So having a single client is a choice, and having multiple clients would also be a choice. Of course, there are different ways on how you would be able to do this, and I would basically recommend that if you are a beginner, especially in the freelancing industry, I wouldn't recommend you to be getting in many clients as you can, because that might destroy your reputation if you cannot deliver sooner or later. But then, if you've got all the experiences, if you got all the knowledge that you need, and you're comfortable and very confident that you can handle another client, then go ahead. That's how freelancing works. So, as a freelancer, in many cases, you are considered an independent contractor. That means you would be offering your services to clients as an independent contractor and not an employee. There are chances that you can get a client and they can hire you as an employee in platforms like this or in online platforms, but in most cases, if you are called a freelancer, then you're not an employee. And just like what I said, if you are your own boss, if you're an independent contractor, then basically you are your own brand. You are a business and not an employee. I think I got a typo here. So, freelancing versus the corporate world. So in freelancing, just like what I mentioned earlier, you are your own boss. But that doesn't mean that you wouldn't be complying to what the client needs. Okay? So let's just say that a client needs you to be online on a specific time, or the client needs you to deliver this and that. Then basically, you have to comply to what the client needs. Just like what you do in the corporate world. But then again, just like what I mentioned, if you're a freelancer, you are your own business. So in freelancing, usually, not all the time, but usually, you don't get fixed salary. Why? Because you can get multiple clients, and those multiple clients, you can have different rates on them. You can basically charge a client either per hour, on a recurring basis, either weekly or monthly. It depends on how you guys actually set up the payment, but that's usually how it goes. So meaning, as a freelancer, you could have different range of income, unless you basically tell the client or all of your clients that this is gonna be my rate and this is what I will do for you, and that's it. Like it's a package service and that's it. But usually those people are that are doing those type of thing are agencies and basically very experienced freelancers that can actually deliver. But yeah, in most cases, you could be wearing different hats. That is why I basically called freelancers geniuses here in Gig Genius, because you could be a lot of person wearing different hat because you are doing all sorts of freelancing work or gigs. Okay, so in the corporate world, usually it's gonna be a fixed salary. You get benefits. So benefits like the SSS, Pag-ibig, PhilHealth, or whatever benefits that the client or that the government is demanding a specific business owner to give to their employees. So basically, as an employee, you are basically more secured, but just like what I said, if you're more secured, the income could be a lot lower, and it's kind of fixed. Okay? For freelancing, you could have an option to choose your own projects, to choose your own client, who would you want to work with, the rates. You can basically put in different rates depending on what kind of service are you going to offer. But unfortunately, in many cases, not all, but in many cases, as a freelancer, you bear all the risks. So I will tell you a backstory. So there are instances that you might make one mistake, and if you do that, because you're getting paid times 3 times 10 of your salary in the corporate job, okay? So sometimes you just make one mistake, and there are tendencies that you can get terminated, and you don't have that backup or protection from the government because you are a freelancer, and that usually happens. Sometimes, in many cases as well, even though you've performed really well, if the project is already completed, if it's done, then basically that's the end of the contract. So you have to go look for new clients once again, and it's gonna be another acquisition, and more effort. So that actually happens. So that is why I always advise to freelancers to basically not spend all of their money and make sure that they have a backup money in any case they lose their current client. Okay. So usually as a freelancer, you don't call your client as employer, you call your client as client. And just like what I said, if you're a freelancer, in many cases, not the first time or not just, one instance, but sometimes or many cases, you don't have your own insurance. So in many cases, you have to apply for your own insurance, pay for your insurance voluntarily, and for the leave, you basically don't have a leave because freelancers don't get leave credits unless you are considered employed. Unless in the company that you work with, you basically have some sort of leave credits and it's part of the perks that they offer, so that's good, but in many cases there's really none. So I have to make sure that I basically repeat the word many cases because it doesn't apply all the time. Okay, so I know that could be redundant. You might feel annoyed because I keep on repeating that, but that's basically the case. Not all clients or not all instances are the same. So you just need to understand the situation first and gauge whether or not this is the type of industry or the type of client you want to work with. Okay, all right, so let's proceed to the next slide. So, the bright side of freelancing. Why don't have I too? Okay, all right, so freedom and flexibility. So, I think this is like a dream job for many people because if you have the freedom and flexibility, you get to work sometimes anytime you want or sometimes anywhere you want. But just like what I said, it's not the case all the time. It depends on the kind of work that you basically have. So I will give you an example. If you're working as a social media manager, sometimes those type of work, if you are working directly with a client, you don't have like an agency that you work with and you don't have like time in and time out. The only thing that you provide your client is to deliver what they are expecting you to deliver. In many cases, you can work anywhere and anytime. But if, for example, you're working as a customer service representative or a receptionist and your client wanted you to work on a specific time, which is the business time or the business hour, then basically, as much as you want to work anytime, you wouldn't be able to do that because you are working based on the client needs. And sometimes you cannot just work anywhere. You cannot bring your laptop to a cafe. You cannot bring your laptop or a desktop if you were provided with one to like a family vacation because you are, there's some sort of application or software that is not allowed for you to be using a different IP and stuff like that. So it really depends. Just like what I mentioned, not all the time. It could be the case. It could be sometimes like web developers. Web developers sometimes can work anywhere, anytime, but it depends. So I want you to like gauge and identify which would be other services that or other services that where you can basically work anytime and anywhere, and other services that will prevent you to work anytime and anywhere. So try to like write them, see what type of work would you want. But definitely this is something that I want you to understand. Those people working in a flexible time, they have some sort of they have some sort of like um, volatility with their setup, so they have to like do extra effort as well. But for someone who actually work on a fixed time, fixed schedule and stuff like that, sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to replace you. That's why it could also be a perk. But just to be clear, it's not the case all the time. Okay. So, as a freelancer, the bright side is unlimited earning. So, I used to start with honestly 3 clients up until I was able to juggle up to 15 clients all at once. That's because I kind of basically understood how the system works already. And the reason why I was able to do that, because first is I know how to do project management or time management already. Second is, in many cases, like, because the 3 clients that I'm talking about, those are like full times. So I got like 3 full-time clients, and then the rest were side hustles or part times. So in many cases, for the part time clients, I sometimes work 1 hour a day, sometimes 5 hour a week, or 10 hours. So it's not like I have to go online all the time. Sometimes it could be 0 hour for that specific week for those other side hustle. And that's the reason why I decided to like add more clients, and if I can still deliver, I would do that, but I wouldn't recommend you to do it. The only thing I was able to do it perfectly was because I kind of have like an ADHD, and I'm more comfortable to juggle multiple clients. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend that. But sooner or later, you're gonna figure out how can you do the unlimited earning thing. But for newbies, do not do that. Okay, so number 3 is global opportunities. You can work anytime, anywhere. So I haven't tried like going to another country and working for a specific client, but I had a colleague before wherein she basically had to move to, I think that was Colombia. I couldn't remember. So she had to work. She had to like move to Colombia because her boyfriend was there, and she basically decided to, stay with the guy and marry him, and that's basically it. It doesn't affect her work. She can still deliver, and she didn't lose that client because that client is okay with her having her to move to a different country. So that's those are like the bright side of freelancing. All right, but I don't want to blind you. I just want to make sure that you understand what freelancing is. So the dark side is unstable income. So just like what I said, with the side hustles that I'm talking about earlier, there are weeks that I don't do anything. That's why I just put them on the to-do list. Like, okay, I'm not doing anything for you guys for a couple of days or weeks already, so that's fine. There are cases wherein I'm getting a lot of tasks from clients, so I would definitely say that it's unstable. It could be big, but it's unstable. And because of that, just like what I said earlier, try to save up. Just because you're earning big right now doesn't mean you should be spending all the time. Save up or invest somewhere as well, because not all clients are permanent. So there you go. Okay, the dark side is no government benefits. So, just like what I said in the initial slide, usually employers are the one doing the taxes, the healthcare, the retirement, SSS, PhilHealth, Pag-ibig, and all those government benefits and contributions, right? But this time, as a freelancer, you have to do it. You have to do the voluntary thing. So, it's up to you. Who will you be hiring to do your taxes? To basically do, enroll your healthcare, prepare for your insurance and retirement and stuff like that. Do the voluntary contribution. But in many, many cases, as a freelancer, no government benefits. Okay, so this is something that I want to be very clear about. The risk of scams. I mentioned this several times. Even though I was already very experienced, there were a couple of chances, like twice, that it happened to me. A client scammed me. They weren't able to scam me in just, the first time. What happened was I basically received payments from them like 2, 3 times, and then suddenly they're gone. And that happens if you are. That's gonna happen if you are working outside a freelance platform. I just want to be clear. If you are going to work outside a freelance platform, the risk of scams is there. Now, I'll give you an example. The reason why freelance marketplaces actually charge you for, like, I'm not sure. For Geek Genius, we're only charging 10%, but for others, they're charging 15-20% of your pay, every recurring pay. So for us, it's going to be 10%. Of course, the platform needs to earn. We need to earn to be able to sustain the business, right? But in other platforms, you get to pay. I think I've been advertising this. So in other platforms, if you're going to apply for a job, you have to buy a credit, or what we call connects or credit, whatever that is. But you have to buy in order for you to be able to apply for a job. Now, for example, you buy 10 credits, you're gonna spend $1.50. So, how much is that? 180, 160 pesos, 159 or something like that. I'm not sure. So, or 180, I'm not sure. So anyway, you are required to buy. So the reason why platforms like Gig Genius, Upwork, and all those platforms were built is to basically protect you from scams. Okay. Now, there are many cases that a freelancer is working within the platform, right? And then they basically did get into contract within the platform. But apparently, the freelancer submitted. So let's just say that you were asked to create graphics or create a website or something like that. And then when you submitted that, you basically forgot to basically put a watermark on the graphics that you created, or you wrote down an article and then you forgot to basically put a watermark on that, and this specific client suddenly did not pay you. That actually happens. That is why, even though you are transacting inside a platform, you can get scammed. That is how others are getting scammed because you were not very wise in submitting your papers, your the results, your work. Okay, so right now I'm telling you, like for example, if you're doing graphics design and stuff like that, if you're submitting any documents to the client, make sure that you watermark it first. Once the client approves, you submit the correct file or the actual file. Okay, now there are cases as well wherein you will get in contact within the platform, but then the client will say, let's just do it outside the platform, so you can get all your commission or all the payment without getting cut. Basically, you can go ahead and do that. You can get banned. Yes, you can get banned in the platform because that's not the right practice. But if that client scams you, remember this. If the client can scam you, can basically tell you to be unsafe, to take the risk, that client has the possibility to scam you as well. So that's a risk. So in many cases, sometimes because the platform has its own chat feature, you guys can chat. But if you decide to like go somewhere else, bring the business there, you take the risk. And you cannot blame Geek Genius or the platform, Upwork or whatever platform you're using, because you've done that. So those are the risk of scams. And basically in many cases, like in Facebook, if you've met clients from Facebook or in social media, Instagram or LinkedIn, not sure. If, for example, you met the clients there, you're they ask you for a payment, or they're not very, their profile is not very legit looking and stuff like that, you can get scammed as well. So as a freelancer, there would really be a lot of scams. There are different ways to scam a person. So I'm not saying that Geek Genius is 100% scam free, but we are regularly making sure that all of the users are verified before they can even use the platform. This is why you're even here taking the lesson. Correct? So be careful out there. As a freelancer, there is a lot of scams. And scammers are always out there thinking of different ways to scam people. So be careful. Last but not the least, isolation and burnout. So, just like what I said, I used to be a freelancer before. And up until now, I do have clients that I work with. And basically, as a freelancer, it's not like when you're in the office where there's like a lot of energy, a lot of people you can see that is there to greet you and stuff like that. Usually, you're just going to sit in a dark room, in a well lit room. Not sure how you work, but for me, it's a dark room right now. So, usually, it's you just sitting there alone, trying to figure things out. And sometimes the feeling of not being able to see another person, sometimes it's it's quite saddening as well. Especially me, I would say I'm not really a social butterfly, but I'm ambivert, I would say. And in many cases, I also feel lonely. So, yeah, it could be boring as well. So, as a freelancer, try to get out from time to time. Spend time with your friends. You have the chance, you have the capability to do that. So, if you have the chance, go and make some friends, hang out with your family, friends. That's just a tip. Okay, so is freelancing really flexible? Again, not all freelancers can work anytime, anywhere. So, anywhere jobs could be writers, designers, developers, location type. Okay, photographers. There are freelance photographers. There are photographers. There are freelance event planners. Okay, customer service, receptionist, VA. What else? There's tons of industries out there. Freelancing is lucrative and risky. This is true. All of these are true. I created this. Top freelancer can earn more than employees. There could be one bad month, two bad months. It's possible, but it can drain your savings, but make sure that you save. And scams, you can get unpaid. This is why I basically try to make sure that we implement the escrow payment. We basically approve you escrow payment. How does it work? So escrow payment actually works like Grab. Okay, not sure if you're familiar with it. I think it's gonna be Uber Eats or Grab or something. So what happens is, if you or if the client orders something, like if the client posted a job, you applied, you basically, so the client ordered something like a job, he needs a job done, so that's a called order, right? So what usually happens is, if a job is needed to be done before, okay, before the payment will be released to the freelancer, the client has to approve it. The freelancer has to submit the work, and vice versa. Okay, if the client doesn't want to pay, that's not gonna happen, because we deduct the payment first before the contract is made, and basically because of that, the money is floating into the system or into the payment gateway that we hired, and the funds will only be released if the client approves it. But if the client basically receives the file and still has not been approving it, and stuff like that, then freelancers can file dispute, making sure that no one gets scammed. So that's how basically the system works. So yeah, but if by any chance there are different other ways to scam someone, it's part of the game. But yeah, we try to make sure that we lessen it, so it could be lucrative but very risky. So with all of the things that I mentioned, are you ready to be a freelancer? Again, I'm not discouraging you. I want to equip you with the right mindset and the right skills moving forward before you jump into the vast ocean and start fishing. That's your final thought? Okay, so I think that's 33 minutes of your time. Thank you for your patience, guys. If you have questions, I highly recommend that you contact us. The contact us button would be in the website. Thank you so much, and good luck to your freelancing journey.